This is Seychelle Van Pool, and I am so excited that you all are here with us today. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come join us. We're going to work to use your time efficiently and effectively as we work through some of the different things that are going on in our market. And we're going to have time for Q&A after this as well. So I want to make sure that we're making time to get, if you have any individual questions or anything that you have that you're wondering about, we want to make sure that we're covering that today during our home selling market. So with no further ado, I'm going to make sure that I am getting you up and running. Give us 1 second. I think I've got my compadre Tony here that is joining us. Hello, Tony.
Hello there.
How are you? Thanks for joining. All right. I've got him up and locked and loaded. All right. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys here tonight. And we are going to have some fun. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to talk about the market, what is going on with real estate here in North Texas. And if you have any specific questions, we're here to be a resource and help as well. Again, my name is Seychelle Van Pool, and I get the distinct pleasure of being the team director for Van Pool Properties here in North Texas. And we are in the top 1% of real estate agents nationwide. We're also in the top 1% of real estate agents in Texas, and we have been voted D Magazine's best realtors and sick. Our goals for today are 4 simple things. Our goals are to break down the real estate market so that you have an understanding about what's happening here. This year has been, I don't know about for any of you guys, but for me, this has been a crazy year and we're not even halfway through it. So we're going to break down the real estate market, what we're seeing, what trends we're watching for, and educate you on what we as real estate consultants and experts look at when we're evaluating the real estate market, so you know what to look for too. We're going to go over some current design trends if you're considering remodeling or maybe even updating to sell your home. We'll go over some things that you can do that. And then what things maximize the value of your home if you're looking to get the most out of it. And then the last part is, how can you feel safe when selling your house? We've had to completely reinvent the way we're doing real estate over the last several weeks. And so with that, we want to make sure we're helping to educate you on how we're doing that. Now, something that I love is I have the distinct pleasure of being in business with family. Barbara Van Pool is actually my mom. She started in real estate on September 11th, 2001, which was actually her birthday. So on 9/11, that was our first day in business here in real estate. And I tell you that to tell you that we understand what it's like to do real estate in uncertain times. So much so that that's actually how we were founded. We've been through the Great Recession over the past 10 years. And not only have we helped 2,500 amazing clients and sold over 900 million in real estate, but we actually are investors as well. And we truly believe that we want our clients to be happier and healthier and wealthier because they chose to work with us. So building your net worth through real estate is something that's really important for us. And here's a look at our amazing team that we have this distinct privilege of working with. We have at the top, you have Erica and Kristen and Tony right down below them that are our awesome operations team. You've got Gwen and Stephanie and Maria on the second row. Below that, you've got Sabra, Caitlin, Randy, Lisa, and then below that, John, Amber, Michael, and Adrian, all here to serve you. And really what we look for in our team members is we look for someone with a really strong business mind. We look for somebody who desires to help people at a high level and wants to serve others. We look for a fast pace, and we look for somebody that really wants to be a real estate consultant. They have a servant heart, and their role is to first help you accomplish your goals over just selling another home. And I think when you're looking for a real estate consultant, that's something that's really important. And you know, here in 2020, because we have completely reinvented the way we're doing business, we've really worked to increase the safety for our customers, boost their confidence, and generate results in uncertain times. And that is really what we strive to do. And by really being your consultants and doing things like we are here tonight, our hope is to educate you so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. So let's dive in without further ado. So when we take a look here at the market, we're going to take a look at some key statistics that I want you to pay attention to. And I want you to know that you can ask questions as well up above. So feel free to ask questions if you would like, and we will work to make sure that we're answering those for you as we go as well, because we want to make sure you're getting value and receiving the best information that you can get. So let's take a look at the market. So when we take a look at your market analysis here for North Texas, here are the things that actually don't dictate what your home is worth, right? Your home is not worth what you paid for it, unfortunately. Sometimes we buy a home in a location or in an area that hasn't appreciated like we'd like to see it. So unfortunately, what you pay doesn't necessarily determine what it's worth today. What you need out of it is not what it's worth today. What you want out of it is not what it's worth today. And what your neighbor's home sold for is not what it's worth. But here are some of the factors that actually do play into your home's value. Let's take a look at what a buyer is willing to pay for it, right? What today's market is indicating that your home could sell for, right? Or the competition, right? The homes around you also help determine what your home would sell for. Let's take a look at what today's financing allows us. We've had a lot of ups and downs with interest rates over the last several months, and also availability of credit from home equity loans to jumbo loans. Those have all expanded with what they were willing to offer and then contracted over the last several months. So if you have any questions around that, we'd be happy to answer those. Right, the other factors that play into the true value of your home are what's going on in today's economy, right? The buyer's perception of your location and your actual home's location, and the time it takes to sell in your neighborhood. Right now, I will tell you we're looking at numbers differently than most real estate consultants are. And I want to tell you why. We're looking at two leading indicators for what's happening in our market. Typically what happens is when you look at home sale numbers in the Dallas Morning News or the Wall Street Journal, or insert any news media outlet that you look at. Typically what those media outlets look at is what's called the Case-Shiller Index. And the Case-Shiller Index reports quarterly, and they look at sold data for the housing market and a bunch of other markets. But specifically in this case, a lot of news media outlets use the Case-Shiller Index. And what that means when they look at that is that they're looking at sold data that can trail anywhere from 30 to 120 days behind what the market is actually indicating. So if you want to watch a lagging indicator, that's a great number to pay attention to. What I also want you to pay attention to with that is if I go and make an offer on a home tonight, and I say, I love this house and I want to buy it, and I make an offer on it, what's actually going to happen is that home is then going to take 30 to 45 days to actually close or be sold. So a sold home actually is what tells us what a buyer is willing to pay for it 30 to 45 days ago. So when you're looking at sold data, you're really getting a lagging indicator of anywhere from 30 to 45 days up to 120 days ago, because that's what a buyer was willing to do last month. So to contrast that, what we're actually going to look at here tonight is two key numbers that we're paying attention to. The first one is the amount of buyers that are willing to put homes under contract like now, this week, this month. They're ready to write contracts, because that tells us if a home changes a status to go under contract, that tells us that a buyer is ready, willing, and able to make an offer on a home today. So when we take a look at that, I want you to see what shelter in place and COVID has done to us over the last several weeks, and also take a look at what the market is indicating as we move into the rest of 2020. So when you pay attention to this, you can tell the gray line is our 2019 numbers, and the red line is our 2020 numbers. So if we look at 2019 versus 2020, we can see that coming into 2020, we were ready to swan dive into a perfect spring and summer market. So when we look at the under contract numbers, we can see that 2020 was actually running ahead of 2019 numbers. So we're swan diving into a perfect spring market, ready for an amazing year. And then this giant bully of COVID comes in and smacks us upside the head and gives us a really hard time. And we have to shelter in place for 3.5 to 4 weeks in some of the counties here in North Texas. And when that happens, that forced a lot of real estate agents and us as real estate consultants to completely reinvent our business. I think we all could say we all were sheltering in place and a lot of people were not leaving their home. Well, that also means home sales are going to decline. So you can see then here between March and April, you can see this dip, which is a 24% dip in the number of contracts written year over year, where buyers did not write offers on houses at the same pace they did in 2019. And what happened was, as we move into May 1st, right, we're moving into May, what we see is that buyers have a couple of different things going on. Number one, they're in their homes and deciding this isn't the right home for me. We have had job changes. We have had relocations change. We have had downsizing and upsizing. We've had divorces and babies and deaths and marriages and all sorts of things occur during that time that everybody has been sheltering in place over the last several weeks. And so what we're seeing then is a pent up buyer demand of buyers saying, I am ready to feel settled. I'm ready to be in a home that I want to enjoy if we have to go shelter in place again. And I'm ready to be in an environment that suits my needs. And so you can see here a spike where we're actually now running at 121% ending in May for May 2020 versus May 2019. And that is a big number for us to pay attention to because that's showing that pent up buyer demand. If we actually take a look at the number of contracts written for the highs, like the 1 week high, you can actually see that on the week of May 17th for 2020, that is the highest week of the number of contracts written for North Texas in the last 5 years. And we actually started tracking these numbers weekly at the end of 2014 going into 2015, because what happens is we actually can't go retroactively pull these numbers if we go back and try to do this in our MLS. So we literally have been tracking weekly numbers of status since 2015. So we can go back and see exactly this, right? We can see these leading indicators of where our market is heading. Now, the second number I want us to pay attention to when we're looking at where our market is heading is I want us to take a look at the new listings coming on the market. Now, a new listing is not a new home. A new listing is a seller that has just put their home on the market. So they're in their first 1 to 7 days on the market in these numbers. And what we'll see in that is we were in March, right? We ran March and April ran 24% behind in the number of contracts written. Well, we ran 27% behind in the number of sellers willing to go on the market, okay? We still, as you can see here, are not running right at 121% of last year for May, like we are on contracts. We're actually still running 2% behind. So if you think about that, we're watching coming into summer that it's very likely that we're going to have a home seller shortage coming into summer because we are writing contracts on more homes than we are replacing them with new listing inventory. So I want you to really pay attention to that, because if you are considering making a move, we have all sorts of things we can do to help find properties as they are just about to hit the market or on the market. And there's a lot of changes in our MLS that occurred on May 1st that actually occurred nationwide that we'll share with you. But there's still things that we are allowed to do by being part of the largest real estate brokerage in all of North Texas that we have advantages for that a lot of other real estate agencies unfortunately don't have the same advantages with. So if we look at the market numbers, really what we're looking at is, okay, well, that's great, Seychelle, but what does this really mean for me? Well, this means that we very likely are going to continue having a shortage of home sellers coming into the market. And at the same time, we have pent up buyer demand wanting to purchase. Now, if I could go back to 2008 before the October real estate crash or the October stock market crash happened, I actually could go back and tell you that we have an amazing financial advisor named Ben Nguyen. He's with JP Morgan Chase that called us. And he called us personally in June of 2008 and said, hey, Seychelle, I know this is counterintuitive, but I want you to know we're seeing some, he called it frothiness in the stock market. I said, you're seeing frothiness in the market. Are we drinking lattes? What are we doing? And he said, no, We're seeing frothiness, meaning it's bubbly, it's unpredictable, it's popping up with different pockets, doing different things. And he said, I know this sounds really bizarre, but we're going to move to all cash. Now, I wish we could have that same foresight every time the real estate, the stock market goes on an up and down curve. But because he called and said something, we moved to all cash and actually were completely unimpacted by the 2008 decline. Now, I tell you that to say that if we're looking at you maximizing your home's value over the next 12 to 36 months, and you're considering moving anytime in the next year to 3 years, I'm telling you that this is a frothiness in the market opportunity where we have more home buyers than we have home sellers willing to sell, which means that you have this short window of time where if you're considering selling your home, you get to take advantage of pent-up buyer demand, whereas otherwise we actually were on a flattening of the curve leading into this of having a more balanced market, almost even moving into a buyer market. So we have this tiny little pocket of recovery in a very strong seller's market. So if you're considering selling, I tell you that to say, make whatever decision's best for you and your family, but you might want to consider seriously selling in the next, I would say, 2 to 4 months if you're considering maximizing your value in the next couple of years. Right? The other thing I want you to keep in mind is over 8% of the country has participated in a forbearance on their mortgage, right? And for those of you that may not know, a forbearance is where you are delaying payments for anywhere from 30 to 90 days on your mortgage. And then those will likely get tacked on to the end of your mortgage. Make sure you read your paperwork really carefully when you're considering forbearance, if that's something that you think you may need to do, because every lender has little nuances where they can adjust your interest rate at will, or they can make all of a sudden all of the money that was due on forbearance, instead of extending your mortgage and putting those payments at the end, they decide they want it all at once. So if you need us to look over those documents or recommend an attorney to do that, we're happy to do it. But if you pay attention to that 8% of the market, of the entire country has participated in forbearance. Well, I'm going to knock on wood here. If our economy recovers, which we all hope it does, and the job market comes back to where it was before, I think we're going to be great. If it doesn't, and more jobs continue to be lost, there will be people that don't have revenue to pick back up their mortgage payments like they were doing before. And you're going to start seeing people needing the equity out of their houses and selling in order to be able to move on with their life or move to a different area for their jobs. And so when that starts happening, you're now dealing with a more desperate seller than you are dealing with an opportunistic seller. And so that will impact the potential of the housing market in 6 to 12 months, depending on how the employment market looks. So just pay attention to the employment market, because we run about right now 3 months behind. Whatever's happening with employment then impacts the housing market 3 to 6 months later. And we don't know what the rest of 20 will hold. It's likely we will see market shifts in the next 12 to 18 months with this phantom inventory or forbearance inventory sitting out in the wings, right? And especially if sellers are unable to afford their home. And if you know of anybody that is having issues, please have them call us, because we are very experienced with walking through those scenarios and are happy to help consult and go over the best options if anybody is dealing with that you know of. Right, and we don't have a crystal ball, but I will tell you it is very likely we're going to see a downward pressure put on the higher end markets if we see a shift in the market occur. So what does this mean for me, right? This means that we have to go in then and determine how we're going to help our clients maximize their home's value. And with 93% of our properties still selling with multiple offers, we understand how to bid properties against each other in order to help make sure that we're maximizing your value, right? And what that process looks like is, number one, we would want to have a Zoom, in-person, or phone consultation regarding your property and evaluate what your property is looking like. We would want to compile the current competition and recent solds in your area. We would want to assess together the current competition and go over the comparables and the recent solds in your area. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come together to formulate the most likely list and sales price for your home. And then what we're going to do is we're going to review the expectations of the home selling process with you, and we'll go over those at the end. Now I would like to take a break, and we're going to transition. We're going to move over to some design trends that are maximizing home's value when we look at what's going on in the design trends for 2020. And there's some really, really neat things starting to happen in design. So if we take a look, some of the top trends that we're seeing in the color tones, really to me, I don't know about you guys, but this reminds me a little bit of the early 1990s coming back with a refresh. We've got your deep blues, we have your earthy muted greens, we have your complex grays are still in, but we have the soft pinks coming in. And I don't know about you guys, but in the early 90s, my bedroom was definitely kind of like a dusty rose color. So it definitely reminds me of the 90s coming back. I may be dating myself here, but we're seeing it coming back. But what I like about what's happening with these trends is we're seeing the contrast with the bright whites, and we're also seeing some high contrast of accent walls with black or wood to kind of like give a pop of contrast. And especially where we're seeing some of those bolder colors is like areas where you can do a splash of color. So if you think about it, darker cabinet colors are coming back. Non-granite countertops, we're seeing everything from quartzite to broken glass, where it's all the broken up glass and recycled glass countertops. We're seeing stained concrete. We're seeing marble, we're seeing quartz, but we're seeing a lot of non-granite countertops. And even on granite, we're seeing a leather or a honed finish now instead of even a shiny finish, which is interesting. We're still seeing, as you can see in this picture, farmhouse sinks. We're seeing standout backsplashes. So that can mean either, like you can see down here, and one of the pictures, we've got that marble wall that's going all the way up instead of teeny tiny tile. We're seeing mosaic backsplashes that look really beautiful. And we're seeing, you know, some really fun artistic expression happening with pops. So those backsplashes are a great area where it's relatively inexpensive to replace if it goes out of trend, but it can really dress up a room. And the other thing we're seeing is instead of just doing a white or a stainless hood, we're seeing stucco or reclaimed wood or wainscoting. We're seeing all sorts of different styles of ranges and hoods almost used as an artistic accent piece instead of just having it be utilitarian, which I think is a really neat way to spice up the kitchen. And then the last thing I want you to notice is we do have kind of a teal, kind of aqua color island here in this kitchen, but that pop of color in the island is still really popular. We're seeing all sorts of really neat bold colors. And again, if it goes out of style within the time between the time you do it and the time you sell, it's a relatively small space to go back and repaint. And so that makes it really easy to do. Now, if we look at the living room trends coming up, we're seeing lots of natural materials and textures coming in, and I'm really excited about that because I think that natural wood brings that warmth into the home that for a while there we got so stark that we were missing some of that warmth. So I'm really excited that we're bringing that back in. We're also seeing that trend towards lighter walls to bring in that natural light. So if you're bringing in some warmth with wood or darker wood floors again, I think having that natural light with lighter walls really is a nice contrast. We're seeing a lot of plants, out with the silk plants, in with the real. Not only does it help your air quality, but it also really just, I think, makes a room feel very accessible and fresh. And then we're also seeing really clean lines and a minimalist feel. And what I would have you think of with that is, more of a Scandinavian style. I think really companies like IKEA and Restoration Hardware and some of these other companies that are coming in and pushing for those cleaner lines have really been driving that in our home furnishings and in the accessories that we're seeing. So definitely a little bit more of modern, and I love it where we'll have our stagers come in. Even if a client is just wanting to stay in their home, they can consult with a client and say, okay, we have these traditional pieces that we have and we'd love to bring in a little bit of flair with modern or modernize it a little bit. Let's work with what we have, and can you help us accessorize or change out a rug or an ottoman and totally change the look of a room. So if that's something you're considering, we'd be happy to have our stagers take a look at that for you. And they're also doing virtual consultations, which is really neat. Let's move to the bedroom. You can see over here, we've got great millwork that is starting to actually become similar to the headboard, right? We used to have these really tall, high headboards, and what we're seeing now is big art in a master bedroom makes your bedroom feel so much bigger. We're also seeing on high quality textiles. So instead of, you can see on all these beds, instead of seeing a lot of pattern on the bed, we're either seeing a pattern with like a throw or a blanket, or really lush luxury texture. And so they're mixing and matching textures, but it's more of a muted pattern. And so we're seeing that a lot when it comes to the bedding and upholstery. We're also seeing statement lighting for both like sconces or lights hanging down by the bed are becoming a real neat trend, and actually a much more flush minimalist ceiling fan. Or if you don't want a ceiling fan in your bedroom, we're still seeing some really neat chandeliers that are still happening in master bedrooms too. And then again, that large scale art is something that's great. And then you can also see here too, we've got some black framing here. It's called divided light on this window in this one master bedroom. We are seeing a trend coming back of either no divided light, meaning no breaking up, like you can see in this master bathroom here, where it's a frosted glass or a solid pane, or we're seeing some of the black divided light dividers coming in the windows too, which is kind of the trend that's coming around. Now, in the master bath, there's a lot of really neat things that are happening in master bathrooms that I feel like this has been the least paid attention to room in the house that people have redesigned for a long time, but not really gotten their bang for the buck. And I'm really excited to see that we have new styles of tubs coming in if you're a bathtub person. We're seeing skylights, like beautiful roof-lined skylights in the master shower to bring natural light in. We're seeing floor-to-ceiling tile, like massive, beautiful porcelain tile that's coming in and really just accentuating a room. We're seeing under cabinet and reverse frame lighting with LED lights to give that soft makeup glow or that soft glow without having to have harsh can lighting. And we're seeing a lot of natural light with frosted windows coming in. Another thing that you can do really easily in a master bathroom, and you can see it up here in the top right picture, is baskets. Baskets hide a lot of things. They're very easy to find, and they really can dress up a room. And so consider, if you're looking for a low-cost remodel, consider something like changing out some baskets, right? Maybe changing out a mirror or two. Mirrors are relatively inexpensive. And maybe changing out a little shelving. You can kind of see in the back of that picture, right? There's some of that exposed wood shelving. You can do a few things like that that will totally change the feel of a room without having to completely remodel if that's something that you're trying to accomplish and stay. So those are some different ideas for your bathroom, but I'm really excited to see that we're paying more attention to the function and the style of a bathroom instead of just replacing one vanity with a different color of vanity, and that all of a sudden makes it different. We're actually really, I think Marie Kondo has really helped us in finding joy in our bathrooms. So that's something that I love that we're getting to see, right? And so let's talk about then, if you're looking at some of these design trends and you're looking to say, okay, well, I'm either going to stay and I want to maximize my value over the next 5, 7, 10 years, or I'm thinking about selling in the next 1 to 12 months. What can I do in my home to maximize my value? Let's take a look at some of the things that you can do. If you're looking at larger projects, the two classic updates still remain. Kitchens and bathrooms are the top choice for renovations, and they still are. They still give you the best ROI for what you're doing. Now, what I want you to keep in mind, though, is if you're remodeling a kitchen or a bathroom, we would love to be involved in that process so that, number one, you're not overspending. Number two, we have a ton of vendors and resources that we can give you that might help you save money. But also, we want to make sure that whatever you're considering doing as far as an update goes, we want to make sure that those updates are in alignment with your neighborhood so that if you decide to go and sell at any point in the future, the work that you're doing is also going to make sure that it's getting you the most money back out of it. And then, like we talked about in the master bathroom or in the kitchen, something as simple as just countertops and backsplash and painting cabinets can make a dramatic difference in a kitchen or in a bathroom. So if you're considering doing something like that, that is honestly where I would start, and then you can move forward from there. And if you're considering switching out appliances, we actually do have contractor discounts at several different stores, including Nebraska Furniture Mart in the appliance department. So we're always happy to, allow you to use those discounts as well to help you if you're considering replacing appliances or major things in the house. Another thing that I love that makes a huge difference is lighting. Lighting is easy to do. If you're handy, you can even watch a YouTube video, or if you know how to do it, right, it's relatively simple to replace. But lighting makes a huge difference when it comes to the look and aesthetic of a house. So if you're considering making updates, that is one that I would highly recommend looking at first, because with relatively little out of pocket, all of a sudden your hallway looks completely updated, or your front of your house looks completely updated with just a switch of a lighting fixture. And ceiling fans can make a big difference too, and they're relatively inexpensive. Another thing that I think is highly underrated that makes a big difference is your cabinet hardware and drawer hardware. I can't tell you how many times just switching out the knobs and pulls on your cabinet and drawer hardware will all of a sudden make your house feel completely different. And it's, you know, maybe a few $100s instead of having to go through an entire remodel. So you might consider doing something like that first before going through an extensive remodel project. Decluttering makes a huge difference, especially right now when we have just come out of a shelter in place. If you haven't used it or you're not planning on using it in the next 6 months, what we've done in our home is we have like one portion of a closet that is the like you're on trial part. And basically what happens is about every 4 to 6 months, I'll go through a closet, and if there's something we haven't worn in a season, or I'm not sure if we're going to use, it goes in that portion of the closet for like the you're on trial. I'm going to see if I use you. And if I don't, anything that's in that closet every 6 months then just gets donated to a charity. And so we love getting to help support our local charities with that, but also keep our house decluttered. And then I know this sounds silly, but paint is super easy and simple. It freshens up a room, and just overall cleanliness. You know, one thing that I'm always amazed of now that we've come out of the rainy season here in Texas into the heat is your windows, when they are freshly washed, make your house look 10 years newer than it was before you washed them. So just do me a favor, go and look at your front door, your back door, and your windows, and go stand in those areas for 1 to 2 minutes. And I want you just to stand there, and I just want you to observe and look up and look down and look around. And I want to see what you notice. Are you noticing cobwebs? Are you noticing dirty windows, which I can attest I was guilty of until recently. You know, do you have flowers that maybe need freshening up? Do you have a front door that maybe needs a fresh coat of paint and a bristled mat on the front porch? Those sorts of things, although it sounds little, make a huge difference when you're considering selling. And they make a huge difference psychologically when somebody walks into your home. They actually decide how clean or not you are before they ever step foot in your home. They judge it by your front porch. And because most of us enter in through our garages or a side door, we don't pay attention to our front porch and front door like we should. So just pay attention to that if you're considering something of what's the first impression that my home is giving, because that is literally how buyers will decide whether or not they want to buy your home before they even step foot in your home. So take a look at that, right? A couple of other things you can do as well outside of the window cleaning is freshening up your landscaping. Red begonias and yellow lantana and the purple butterfly plants are the 3 that will last you through the summer, that will continue to flower, will attract butterflies, and will look great all the way into fall. Power washing your sidewalks and your driveways make a big difference. Cleaning up your HVAC units, getting the hose out there and spraying that down, trimming your trees back, all of a sudden make your home feel bigger, right? And again, as that buyer walks up, what's the first impression that you want to make? So let's talk about things you can do to make your home feel safer, and some of the things that we are doing to make our sellers feel safer with our Safe Home Seller program. So when we look last year, our team sold 25% of our buyer side home sales were actually done to buyers over FaceTime, YouTube, or some form of video chat. And I say that to tell you that this is actually exciting for us when our market was forced to go into shelter in place, because we were able to deploy a lot of the technology that we had been using and having trouble getting other real estate agents to adopt. We were actually able to get them to adopt some of the things we've been doing now for a couple of years on a larger scale. So that was really exciting for us. And so, you know, I like to say that I feel like it's our job to gather as much information as possible, and our team feels this way too. We want to gather as much information as possible about a property before a buyer ever steps foot in a home, or a buyer ever steps foot into one of our listings. Because if you're going to be kicked out of your house as a home seller for 1 to 2 to 3 hours, let's make sure it's a buyer that's really qualified and worth it, rather than a looky-loo that just wants to come from the neighborhood and stare at your house to get design ideas. that's great, but we can send them a video for that instead of them kicking you out of your house. So a few things that we're able to do for the buyers to help them really evaluate your home before stepping foot in are we're able to do detailed floor plans. We have Matterport, which if you're familiar with that, it's where you can click and view through a property without ever having to step foot in it. You can even see where the outlets are and the plugs are. We've also found something I think is a little bit more user-friendly. It's a little less detailed in showing you where every plug and outlet is, but I think it's easier to use from a consumer experience is 3D home tours. And so room by room, you can literally walk through the room and view, not with the fisheye lens, but actual view 360 of a room before going into the next one to see how a layout of a home works. And then we have facilitated, oh my gosh, over 100 now, Zoom or FaceTime walkthroughs since all of this has taken place, where either the buyer and our team and the seller and the listing agent, or we and the seller and the buyer together are walking through a home on video, and they can ask live questions. Something else that we found to be really effective are virtual open houses, where we can, instead of having a seller get kicked out of their home for hours a day every weekend, we can actually have them leave the house once for 15 minutes, and then we can host that virtual open house over again and again. A few other things that we have that, safety is really important and cleanliness is really important. So we actually just got in the mail today a new round of our Vanpool Properties masks for our clients. We also have options with gloves and footies for them to be able to wear. But if you're considering selling your home, some of the things that we found to be really helpful are they go ahead and leave the front door unlocked, and they go ahead and leave all the lights on and all the doors open in the home. We have had even a few sellers that we've helped them sell their house that were immunocompromised, where they didn't even have to leave the house. We were able to leave all the windows open, give the 3D virtual tour and everything else, generate multiple offers on the property. And then once the home was under contract, the buyers were able to come through. But that seller only had to show their house to one or two people, maybe the inspector, the buyers, and their agent, one time, instead of having to do that numerous times in their home selling experience. So although this the COVID situation has not been ideal from a health standpoint and an epidemic standpoint, and we really feel for everybody that is being impacted by that, I will say it's actually really been exciting from an entrepreneurial standpoint in our business, because we are able to really help move the industry forward and reinvent the way the business is looking. And that to me is really very exciting. Now, if we take a look at staging on your property, there's a couple different things we can do. We can either send one of our stagers through a virtual or in-person consult, and they can work with you with your things. Oftentimes you have amazing things. We just have to stage them in a way that makes the home feel as open physically as possible, so the photography looks fantastic. But we also have had a lot of success with virtual staging, where we have our designers come in and customize a room with, if it's empty, with virtual furniture. And it's amazing. My husband the other night was looking through one of our homes that we have that just went under contract, and he was like, "Oh, I love that bedroom setup." And I kind of got to look at him and say, "That's part of our virtual staging suite." And he had no idea it was actually not real furniture. So that's really exciting that even my husband, who has a pretty good eye, couldn't even tell the difference. So here you can take a look and see, this is one of our actual clients, right? Look at that bedroom suite. That was the empty room before, and then you can see what it looks like with that virtual furniture. It makes a really big difference. And I also think photography makes a huge difference. Our team has really discovered that who you hire matters. And it's really important that you have somebody with an eye for design, an eye for marketing. My background is actually advertising with 3 different agencies, but the last one before I came into real estate was with DDB Worldwide, which when we were there was the #1 advertising agency in the world for 5 years running when I was working there. But you can see just even with these pictures of this home, it's a really cute, simple, basic front, right? The previous agent, you can see on the left, their front photo, right? It's dark, it's kind of shaded, it's got a lot of sunlight. You can then see our photographer with the triple exposure, what a difference that makes, right? Then you can see down the kitchen, right? We didn't have them do any remodeling of the kitchen, but we did rephotograph it and get a little bit of staging cleanup so that we didn't have all the accessories out on the counter. But you can see what a difference angle lighting, professionalism makes, because the other agent had it listed, couldn't get it sold. We had this one under contract with multiple offers in less than 7 days. Same price. Isn't that amazing? So it really does make a difference. And we also are using lifestyle videos. We are doing all sorts of really neat things when it comes to 3D video tours, drone photography, triple exposure, where we do the light, the medium, and the dark photography and blend them together so you can get the contrast of the sky with the brick, right? That's really hard to get. So that's really exciting. Now, I would also encourage you, because 95% of buyers start looking online, right? I would encourage you, there's a couple of key questions that you probably want to ask if you're considering interviewing real estate agents. One of the first ones that I would take a look at is the question, and you can't give them the answer. So if you ask the question, you are not allowed to give the answer on this one. But the question is, well, what do you do when you get an offer on my home? And then you sit and you wait and you let them answer for you. And what oftentimes will happen is that real estate agent will give you one of two answers back. They will either say the first one, which is definitely the least ideal of any answer they could give you, which is, well, I'll call you right away, we'll negotiate it and get it under contract. Well, while that's great, they're not vetting anybody, they're not getting additional negotiation power for you, and they're definitely leaving money on the table for you. The second answer they might give you is they'll tell you, well, I'm going to call the buyer's lender and interview them to make sure that they are financially fit. And we do agree that is something that should happen. But again, that's not the answer that's going to get you the most amount of money for your house. So what they should answer for you, if asked, what do you do when you get an offer on my home, is they should say, with your permission, I'm not going to call you first. What I am going to do is delay for anywhere from 1 to 2 hours before letting you know that we have an offer in hand. And we're going to do a couple of really important things. And these things we have done in our business since 2006. So now 14 years. So we have thousands of happy clients, of a track record in understanding how the system works. And we teach other real estate agents how to do this because we feel like it is so important to their client. But what they should do is they should go back, number one, and personally call every single real estate agent and buyer that has shown any interest at all in your house. Because what happens when somebody's interested in a home or somebody's interested in the last of an item, right? All of a sudden, it becomes that much more appealing when it's about to be taken off the shelf. I know I've had it before in the store where I'll see a shirt and it's cute, but all of a sudden I see there's the last one of my size get taken. And I start having self-talk, doubt of, well, am I missing out? Should I wait and see if that comes back out of the dressing room? Maybe that was something that could have looked really great on me. There's not many of them left. Well, that same fear of missing out happens with your home. So if a buyer is about to put it under contract, right, all of a sudden other buyers start thinking, well, maybe I should be really seriously considering that one. It was on my short list, but maybe I really need to look at it because it's about to be gone and I don't want to miss out. So they need to call through everybody that's shown interest in the house. And then the second thing that they need to do is obviously interview the lender. It is so important to interview lenders right now because we are seeing them kill deals right and left. And I will tell you, some of the big banks are some of the worst offenders. Even though they have great reputations in banking, they have very little emotional attachment to the outcome when it comes to lending for their clients. And so we are seeing them cost buyers thousands of dollars in additional earnest money and missed deadlines and having to move twice and killed home purchase opportunities just because the lender was unable to stick with the timeline that they promised up and down that they were willing to give the buyer. So we have a whole one-page questionnaire that we ask every lender once we know if we're in one or multiple offer situations to be able to interview and really see not only who's the best buyer, who's the best agent, who's the best qualified, but also that lender can make or break your deal right now more than just about anybody else. So who's the lender on the other side of that? And what do we need to do to make sure that they're financially fit to make that happen? So, and actually this is one of our dear clients we just helped move to California. So I'm going to play this for 1 second for you because she's fantastic. Her name is Christy Pope. Oh, and it looks like it didn't play. Let's see if that'll play. Oh, it didn't play today. Well, that's okay. We won't worry about it then. But what Christy basically experienced was she showed her home to 2 people during this process. We were able to get her multiple offers on her home. We got it under contract, negotiated a month-long lease back for them to be able to pack up and move to California. and then helped them facilitate the move to California, and found them a great agent out there that found a great house for them. So regardless of what it is that you're needing, we want to make sure that we are here to assist and here to add value. Now, I want to make sure that I am respectful of everybody's time. So if you have any questions or there is any additional things that we can answer for you, we want to make sure that we're doing that for you. So I will go over to our question and answer section for a couple of seconds and answer a few questions that we have. And then we'll make sure we wrap up on time, or even maybe a couple minutes early, to make sure that you have exactly what you need. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to put them in a chat. Okay, one of our guests is asking, I'm considering leasing out or selling my house. Which do you think is going to be the most advantageous right now? It's a great question. So one of the things that we are seeing is that when jobs are going to be lost, right, the uncertainty factor goes up and people are a little bit more afraid of what's going to be their next opportunity. So you're going to see a spike. Actually, when a market goes down, you see a spike in rental properties and rental rates. So I know this is counterintuitive because I am in real estate and we are the most highly compensated by helping people buy and sell houses, but we also really like to help people build wealth through real estate. So I would say the best time to sell real estate is never, unless you really need to. So, if it's something where you need the equity out of it, or it's the right time in your life to do that, great. But let's look at 1031 exchanging that into another investment property to help you avoid capital gains. Or let's make sure that we're looking at what we can do to maximize your value if there's a little bit of updating that we need to do to help with that as well. I'm seeing another one that says, if I need to sell immediately, what are my options? That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. And Andy asked that question. So Andy, if you need to sell immediately, the first thing we need to do is go ahead and schedule a time where we can Zoom or visit your home, whichever is most comfortable for you and your family. Ideally in the next day or two. Our market is seriously short of home sellers. So let's get on the books right away to take a look at your home, and we can, even while we're doing the in-person or Zoom consultation for on demand, we can go over the numbers right there while we're looking at your house and make the best game plan for getting you to market. But I would say we can get you on the market in 3 to 5 days maximum. If your property is an investor potential, we can even start generating offers within 24 to 48 hours. But if you want to go traditional and really try to maximize your value, I would say 3 to 5 days lead time is about what we need to get you on the market. And your best days to hit the market right now are Monday or Tuesday in our real estate market. Something I want to make sure that you know as well that is new. As of May 1st this year in 2020, we are seeing that the National Association of Realtors made a rule across all states. And what it states is that as soon as you let anybody know, the seller or the real estate agent, let anybody know publicly that a home is coming up for sale before it hits the market, it must go on MLS within 24 hours of that advertising taking place. And so before, we used to be able to get away with putting a coming soon sign in the yard weeks in advance. We could even market it to a hip pocket list of buyers days in advance. Unfortunately, now that opportunity has diminished to 24 hours. What they're trying to do is make sure that every buyer has an opportunity to see your property. They're also trying to make sure that we are abiding by fair housing rules and not discriminating, or shortchanging somebody from getting more money for their home if they had gone a traditional route on MLS. But that's something to keep in mind, is that the days of brokerages saying they have this huge list of buyers that they're going to pre-market to, unfortunately, unless it is our specific buyer pool or in our small brokerage, I cannot do that outside of there. So I could not send a mass email blast to a buyer list to be able to do that. It has to be inside of our brokerage under our same umbrella company. So that's something interesting that's new since May 1st. And also I got the question of, what's the most surprising thing you've encountered lately? I'm experiencing that buyers are very ready, willing, and able to get out and go take a look at homes. And I'm also observing that a lot of sellers still have a lot of hesitancy around buyers coming into their home, which is setting us up for a little bit of an unusual circumstance. And so when that's happening, we want to make sure that we are taking every precaution possible, that we are letting the buyer's agents know our expectations before they're showing. We send them the 3D video walkthrough before they even go show, so that they can already walk the home before going in. So it's almost like a second showing. But I have been surprised at still how hesitant many sellers are to let people come through their home versus the willingness of buyers who are ready to make a move and make a decision. So that's something just to pay attention to. Oh, this is another good question too. Given the new processes in place since COVID, is it taking longer to sell my home? The answer on that actually is yes, it is at times taking longer to sell your home. The biggest reason for that is appraisers. Appraisers are used to run anywhere from 3 to 7 days to turn around the appraisal. And we have seen, we actually had a home close on Friday where the appraiser took 30 days to turn the appraisal around. And that was with us literally every single day pushing on the bank. We didn't even represent the bank. The buyer, we represented the seller, but we were pushing on the lender. We were finding escalation opportunities. We were going to the lender's manager, all of those things that the buyer's agent and the buyer were not doing. So, I almost wonder if we hadn't been pushing that hard, we might still be sitting here not closed on that property. But that's been probably the biggest unknown factor, is how long it's taking to get appraisals. And I think that will dictate whether or not lenders are able to meet the deadlines that they're needing. The other thing to keep in mind too is our jumbo market went from being really competitive and expansive. So this is homes over about $515,000, $520,000 for the loan amount. Anything over that, we went from having lots of lenders, lots of warehouse lines, and lots of options to really 2 in the country that are willing to lend on the jumbo market right now. And when that happens, that means that the buyer pool went from being able to, really, if you're qualified, you could get the money, no problem, to now they're having to jump through a lot more hoops to get that loan. And the interest rates they're still competitive today, but our lenders that we're talking with that are still successfully doing jumbos are anticipating that that's going to tighten and those rates will go up. So if you're considering selling and your home is valued over that, $575,000 to $600,000 mark, and it's over that amount, you probably need to consider selling sooner rather than later, because we think that we're seeing it already, that buyer pool is going to be shrinking up some. Comparing to what it has been in the past. So I would say time is of the essence if you're above that number. And then the last question, which I think is a great one that we'll end on, is what if we experience a second wave of shelter in place for COVID? I'm certainly not a health expert, and we'll let the data and the science really prove itself out over the next several months. But we are seeing that there's a very strong likelihood that we could see shelter in place or a spike in infections happen again later this year. And if that occurs, the thing that gives me a lot of peace of mind is we've already had to reinvent the business entirely on our team side. So I'm actually feeling very comfortable that we are not going to skip a beat, and we're going to be able to help our clients accomplish their goals. But I do think that could impact our market and create, again, some shifting in the marketplace. Because we have a lot of real estate agents that sell 5 to 7 houses a year normally. And, if they're having an off year, like we're hearing many in that 5 to 7 range experiencing an off year, they may only be selling 2 or 3 homes this year. And that really is not enough to feed their family or understand how to navigate the waters in this market. So, having our average team member selling, 35 to 63 houses a year, they're seeing the trends so much and so fast with what's going on that it allows us to adapt so much quicker than selling a home every other month, which is really, imagine driving your car every other month on the highway during rush hour. You're going to forget the tricks to get on and off, or where the blind spots are, or cars may feel more aggressive around you that drive, up and down the toll road 7 times a day. So, I think about that in real estate too. If we do have a second wave happen, which is a possibility, I think that's really important to pay attention to, because we will have that issue moving forward. So, time will tell. We hope everybody stays healthy and safe because that's what's most important. And we feel very confident in our processes and our procedures that we will have a successful outcome for our clients, regardless of what happens. And I'm very excited that we're in that position and have already had to reinvent the wheel. So that feels great. I want to thank you. We're at 6:56, so I'm going to wrap us early here. And I want to thank you all for attending today. Your time is incredibly valuable, and we want to be here to help you. We are here to be a resource, and we want to assist you with whatever your real estate needs are, whether it's staying in your current home, leasing it out, selling it, or building wealth in real estate. So I think that's important as well. But so you can always reach out to us. Our phone number to reach us at is 972-608-0777. Again, it's 972-608-0777, or you can email us at Barbara, BARBARA @vanpool.com. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it, and my whole team does, and we hope you have a fantastic evening. Take care.